Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Welcome. Before we get started, just a few housekeeping announcements. So let's make sure that everyone's mic is muted throughout the presentation, please. And if you have any questions, feel free to send them to the chat. We will be answering questions, but towards the end. So for anyone who is new to the Nigerian Center, we are a nonprofit organization that focuses on uplifting and giving resources to the Nigerian diaspora in the US. We aim to accomplish this in a variety of ways. We offer immigration legal services, homeownership services, entrepreneurship and small business resources, as well as language classes. We also host cultural events centered around Nigerian culture. While we are called the Nigerian Center, our principal goal is to help uplift all immigrant communities here in the US. Now, moving towards today's event, today's speaker, who has courteously volunteered their time, is Ms. Jaye Lowe. She is an attorney and immigration law expert. And today's topic is employment-based immigration. But before we hear from Ms. Lowe, we will have a brief word from our CEO and founder, Mr. Benga Ogunjimi. Benga, the podium is all yours.
Thank you very much, Tyler, for that introduction. And I want to welcome everyone once again. Thank you for being a part of this conversation. Immigration Right Workshops, Employment-Based Immigration, What You Need to Know. So I am the founder and CEO of the Nigerian Center. And I want to take a little moment to talk more about the mission of the Nigerian Center and also give opportunities for you to get involved in what we do. The Nigerian Center is the very first cultural immigrant center for the Nigerian American community in the United States. The mission of the organization is to promote access to the Nigerian culture in the United States, as well as facilitate financial inclusion for both the Nigerian American community and all other immigrant groups in the United States. To do so, we have identified 4 areas of asset building. The very first asset building area is immigration. We know that immigration is one of the cornerstones for immigrant communities to pursue the American dream, and also pathway towards becoming American, and also all the benefit and all the opportunities and privileges in this United States. So oftentimes when we celebrate communities like the Nigerian community, of the success stories that we have in terms of the levels of education, levels of prosperity, oftentimes the spotlight is not shone on those who are in the shadows, those who may have immigration challenges, and hence the reason why we have made immigration one of the very core focus areas of our program. That is why we have this workshop today. We also thought this particular workshop is very important because our research is showing us that oftentimes in our community, the family-based immigration is usually the default, and folks may not have understanding or information about all other pathways of naturalization and permanent status residence in the United States. So the second area that we work on is home ownership. We know ownership is one of the bases for wealth building, not just in America, but any part of the world. And oftentimes, folks in our community challenges understanding how the credit system works, understanding how the mortgage system works, keep folks unnecessarily to rent when they can use the same resources they have to own their own home. So we're providing opportunities for home ownership through our programs. Access to capital. Entrepreneurship is not just an aspiration or a desire for a lot of people in immigrant communities. It's a survival strategy, and hence the reason why we are providing access to loans and access to capital, particularly access to credit building loans for folks to be able to pursue their entrepreneurship dream in the United States. We have language classes. At this time, we're providing Igbo and Yoruba classes online for folks. We're able to provide those services as well. So those are the services that the Nigerian Center currently offers. So as I said, today we are going to talk about employment-based immigration, all that you need to know. We recently held our home ownership classes. If you missed that class, if you go to our website on the media, you are able to access the recording. Our speaker gave us a lot of resources, told his own ownership story, and really helped to demystify the myth often associated with home ownership. It was a very great resource, highly recommended. The recording is on our website on the media. So this Friday and Saturday, July 1st and 2nd, we are hosting our very first meet and greet in collaboration with the Roundhouse Theater in Bethesda, Maryland. And this is going to be the preview of the play Nollywood Dreams. Nollywood is the Nigerian Hollywood entertainment industry. And this is a live play that talks about Lagos in the 90s. So we are so honored for this partnership. We have provided complimentary tickets to those who reached out to them. We are still able to provide discounted ticket if you want to see the play as part of the Nigerian Center group. However, whether you choose to see the play or not, we are hosting our in-person meeting on the 1st and on the 2nd of July at 7 p.m. at the theater, at the Roundhouse Theater House in Bethesda, Maryland. So if you go to the website, Nigerian Center /events, please indicate the date you'll try to come. I would definitely love for you to be a part of our community. It's going to be an opportunity to meet our staff, our team, our partners, and we also want to build this community together. So we hope you are able to join us should you be in the DMV area. So as I said, we are accepting applications for our Igbo program. It is virtual, so you are able to join nationwide or any part of the world. We are also doing the same for our Yoruba program classes. So you're able to join these classes any part of the world. To register for this program, you can go to the website, nigeriancenter.org/events, or if you go to the language section, you can still have access to the same program. As I said, that we are providing access to loans and financial investment into startup businesses. And I really want to talk about our credit building loans. Nigeria and several countries we represent do not have a credit system like we have in the United States. So it takes folks a lot of years before they become credit visible. I think the technical term is credit invincible. And not that they have bad credit, they just don't have any credit history. So with this program, we are able to provide microloans for credit building. And this applies to both personal credit as well as business credit. So we can accelerate that journey towards opening your business. And our loans at this time it start at $500 and it goes up to $250,000. So if you go to the website, you can submit an inquiry and then we'll be able to support you with your business needs. I want to talk about our volunteer program. At this time, the entire staff of Nigerian Center is volunteer-led. So if you want to join our team to serve in any capacity, please absolutely feel free to do so. We want you to please reach out to us. And those who have been reaching out asking, how can I help? What can I do? I want to say thank you. And my statement I've been saying lately to those who reached out to us is the common saying that when change starts, some people make commentaries about the change. Some people talk about the change and some people just reach out and say, how can I become a part of this change and make it happen? So we invite you to join Nigerian Center to help make impact and the changes we envision for our community become a reality. So if you go to Nigerian Center /serve, we have internship opportunities, volunteer opportunities, as well as fellowship opportunities. We also have ambassador opportunities just to announce the work that you're doing to your community. We just launched this program called Community Partners. And Community Partners is a community of community leaders and organizations that are interested and committed to supporting our community, which is the Nigerian American community. And this community comprises of individuals that may come from nonprofits, local businesses, municipal government agencies, policy leaders, faith-based leaders, influencers, just leaders of faith, leaders in their community, and anyone who just want to be committed to empowering our community, we ask that you go to nigeriancenter.org/community partners and submit a form to indicate your interest. The reason why this is important, the services that we're trying to get to people, we are the very first center in our country. Can you imagine that? So we understand that this is really culture new. I don't want to use the word a culture shock for most folks, that they can actually be a center that is geared towards serving you and supporting you. And I know the culture around anonymity that folks may have about what they may need help with. So we will rely on our community leaders to get us access into this community. So if you already have access to a church community, a mosque community, a business community, a student community, we really want to become partners and become conduit to get our programs access to this community. And we want also them to reach out to us through them. So we are hosting this periodic partner calls, educating us, letting us know what the community needs and how we might be able to collaboratively be of service to them. If you have not joined us on social media, you have my permission to temporarily go online and go to Instagram. The Nigerian Center is the handle. Go to Facebook, the Nigerian Center is the handle. And on Twitter, we are actually Nigerian Center on Twitter, not the Nigerian Center. So Instagram, the Nigerian Center, Facebook, the Nigerian Center, Twitter, just Nigerian Center, Nigerian Center. Please follow us on social media. We really, really want you to do so straight away. I want to talk about donations. We ask for your donations to support the work that we're doing. If you can consider becoming a recurring donor to our program, we really would appreciate it. We ask that you partner with us for a couple of months to support our programs. And if you want to make a one-time donation, we actually welcome you to do so. We are 501c3, meaning that the donations to us are tax deductible. And also, if you want to become a conduit to other organizations we should be talking to support our work, please reach out to us. We really need your support. That said, the moment we've all been waiting for, it is my honor to present to you Mrs. Jaye Lowe of the Immigration Practice Law Firm based out of Baltimore, Maryland, and specializes in all forms of immigration law. We are so thankful that you said yes to our invitation. Mrs. Lowe, I'll open the floor to you. The microphone is yours at this moment. Mr. We cannot hear you. Your microphone is on mute. So if you can unmute the microphone.
There you go.
Yes,
there we are.
Now we can.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jaye Lowe, and I'm the principal attorney here at the Immigration Law Practice. And we're located actually in Hyattsville, Maryland, which is a hop, skip, and a jump from Baltimore. So we service everyone. We're close to the District 9, and we're also, half an hour away from Baltimore. So it is an absolute pleasure to be able to be with you and to share with this particular group. As a matter of fact, I really want to thank the Nigerian Center for deeming me worthy to be called to make this presentation. And I must tell you that there are times when I'll get calls and the people would say, hello, are you Jaye? And at first I didn't understand what that was, but I understand that Jaye is a name in Yoruba meaning happy and joyful. So I will take that. I am Jaye Lowe, but you can always call me Jaye Lowe if you want to. Anyway, this is indeed an opportune time for us to be talking on this topic, because for the first time in many, many, many years, the employment category is awash with numbers until the next fiscal year. And so, as I said before, this is an opportune time for us to really dig in and to give some explanations. It's, you know, we're going to go down the line and talk about the EB1s through EB5s. Now, we're going to do it alternately, but at this time, I'd like to introduce to you Denise Pensinger, who is the office manager and case manager. She has extensive knowledge in this area. And so I turn it over to her to give you a little bit about herself.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here speaking with you. Basically my background is that I have a law degree from Loyola New Orleans. I have a master's degree from international law from Georgetown, and I've been working in immigration law field for more than 20 years. Here at the immigration law practice, I'm the case manager, which I like to say is the mechanic that puts all the pieces together for the car so that Miss Lowe, the attorney, can drive the car where it needs to go. So in that vein, we're going to discuss all these areas of employment law, both from the legal aspect and then the practical aspect. And so with that, I guess we will start with EB1.
So we will do it alternately. I will do EB1, she'll do EB2, I'll come back to EB3, and she does EB4 and 5. Okay, now the EB1 visa category is for exceptional ability. And as it says on the screen, you may be eligible for the employment-based first preference visa if you have an extraordinary ability, or you actually are an outstanding professor or researcher. And so we'll go down the line and explain what it is. When we talk about the EB1, we're talking about actresses, actors, and singers with extraordinary abilities. You must be able to demonstrate extraordinary ability in the science, arts, education, or business. Now, I want to take the time to tell you, when I first started practicing, I met a gentleman who got an extraordinary ability visa. And guess what his profession was, or what his extraordinary ability was? It was playing the talking drums, if you can believe that. He was actually able to get a green card because of his ability to play the talking drums. And that was about 25 years ago. So that was a novelty in the United States. So that is one of the areas that we talk about. The second is the outstanding professors and researchers. You must demonstrate, if you're going to be a professor or researcher, international recognition for your outstanding achievement in a particular field. You must have at least 3 years of experience in teaching or researching in that academic area. And you must be entering the United States to pursue tenure or a tenure track teaching or comparable research position at a university or other institutions of higher learning. You must also have a job offer, okay, from a university or an institution of higher learning. Now, with the EB1, you can do a concurrent filing with an adjustment of status. So all of the applications would go in at once. But as we will explain, if there are questions after, this is not necessarily a walk in the park. You have to have copious amounts of qualifications and information in order to be able to avail yourself of the EB1 visa. Now, one of the things that I need to tell you also is that in this category, unlike the family-based immigration category, you must be in some sort of status to change status. I oftentimes tell my clients that the seminal rule in immigration law is to be in status to change status. So unlike some of the family-based petitions where your first preference, even if you're out of status, if you get married or if you have a parent, you can change status. In the employment-based category, that is not the case. You have to have maintained some sort of a non-immigrant status, a student status, or even if you're in a B status and you do an extension, but that is the case. Now you also have the multi-level manager or executive. And here you must have worked in a managerial or executive capacity for a firm or corporation outside the United States for at least 1 year during the 3 years before submitting your application or your petition. And you must seek to enter the United States to continue service for that firm or organization. Your employment must have been with the same employer or an affiliate or a subsidiary. One of the companies, when it was formed, I believe it was with one of the companies like Google or those big multinationals in mind, but we've been able to do it for smaller, much smaller companies where you bring someone in as a manager or an executive and they're able to get their EB1. So I will pass over the next category to Denise.
EB2. Okay, there are several categories of EB2. One that most people may have heard of is EB2s for outstanding researchers and professors with extraordinary ability who are asking for what we call national interest waiver. Other categories of EB2 require in labor certifications, but for example, in the category of a national interest waiver, the person has such skills and such an academic record, for example, multiple PhDs, teaching experience, publications, and that they can show that their work is going to be vital importance to the United States. They can actually self-petition without having a sponsor, a company, to follow the applications. Now, again, in this category, as Ms. Lowe said, you must be in status. What that means is you can either apply from outside the United States and come in legally after having the visa approved, or if you came in legally with a visitor visa, you can file to change your status with the EB2, for example, in the category of, as I said, national interest waiver. You file your adjustment status with your application, your I-140, and then you are protected until such time as either you get your green card or there's a decision from the USCIS. There are other categories. Of course, there's other advanced degrees that fall into this category. And all these categories are very document oriented. In family-based immigration, of course, there's documents that are required to show proof of a valid relationship. But in this category, you need letters showing your licensing, your experience, that you've been working at least 10 years, your academic record, membership in professional associations, peer letters saying that you are, in fact, a person of exceptional degree and ability. And this also, as I said, publications, writings, lectures, seminars, or things that are related to your particular field. So it is very document intensive. And I can say that from experience, for example, that the immigration actually not only reads and reviews, but they may ask for like Google searches, who cited your publications before? Are people actually reading what you're saying? And is it helpful in your industry to determine whether you in fact qualify? Now, there are categories of EB2 where you can get a labor certification. And under that category of labor certification, you need an employer to sponsor you. We'll discuss that more under EB3, because that's generally what people think of when they think of labor certifications, but also under EB2, you can get this. There also might be a blanket labor certification. Say, for example, there's an industry and the industry needs certain people. The employer can file with the Labor Department for saying, we need people to do these particular jobs, and the Labor Department will approve it, not with any particular person's name in mind, just a group of people. And then the employer then, once having that labor certification, fills those positions with employees that meet the criteria. So every category of EB2 has different filing fees, different processing. But the good thing about this category is that your children under 21, if long as they're not married, and your spouse could be included in your application, and then they would get derivative status along with you, which is important for many people. Also, they would be able to, when you file your adjustment of status, similarly get work permit, social security number, and be able to carry on. The other thing about EB2 that's important is there's expedited processing available for many of these applications, which means for an extra fee, you can pay the USCIS, which is approximately $2,200. Yes. Then you would be able to get a response from them in 15 business days. And that would be either yes, no, or they want more information. So that's helpful in many categories, or people that are eligible to use the expedited processing to help them make decisions about their future in terms of staying in the United States. With that, I will transfer to EB3 and Ms.
Okay.
Lowe.
Let me just go back. In the EB1 category, you don't need a labor certification, as with most of the EB2s. Now, with the EB3s, you do need a labor certification and a permanent full-time job offer. And so there are various categories. In the skilled worker category, you must demonstrate that you have at least 2 years of job experience or training. And you should show relevant post-secondary education as training. Now, who are skilled workers? Some come to mind. Recently, we've noticed that you have people like landscape designers, or they call them landscape engineers, people who direct others to do the landscaping, or many in the construction field would qualify, such as stone masons or heavy equipment users, and specialty cooks, and some nannies, but specialty cooks, or a cook in your home. If you have a big home and you entertain a lot, then those would be considered skilled workers. Then you have the professionals, and it's not like the EB1 and the EB2, but these are, dare I say, lower professionals, that they have to demonstrate that they have earned a US bachelor's degree or its foreign equivalent related to the occupation in which they want to work. And so they have to show that they cannot at this point use education and experience to substitute for the bachelor's degree. You have to come with a bachelor's degree. And what comes to mind are professions like cybersecurity or professions in the STEM area that a lot of people are going into now. So those are the type of professionals that they're looking for, but you have to have a labor certification, as I said before, and a permanent full-time job offer. That is required. Now, then we go to the unskilled worker. And these, you notice they've put it as other workers. And in the same way, you must be able to perform unskilled labor requiring less than 2 years training or experience, and for which qualified workers, there are no qualified workers in the United States. And that's something that we need to point out. Generally, when we do labor certification, we have to demonstrate that that particular job or that particular area of work they do not have, or does not have rather, the people, enough people to fill those slots. And so, for instance, we've done specialty cooks already, and specialty cook like in a Caribbean restaurant or in an African restaurant. And of course, there might not be a lot of people here who will do that. So that would be something that would pass muster. But, something else like a gardener, I mean, they would be able to say, come on, we can find those people. So it has to be in the area that there are not enough workers in the United States. Nannies without 2 years experience, waitresses probably, But anything that is an unskilled, the thing that comes to mind mostly are nannies, but that takes a very, very long time. And as I said before, bear in mind that people who are here and who have overstayed cannot take advantage of this category unless and until immigration reform is passed. And so I will pass it over to Denise again.
And was when we're starting EB4, I want to make one comment about EB3. Is that while in family immigration law, it's possible to file yourself, and without using the internet and perhaps not legal services, but in employment-based immigration, it's very critical that you really have competent legal representation and advice, because these categories are much more technical, much more assessed more analytically, and also the costs and the process are long and arduous. And if you make a mistake, then they're not very forgiving. For example, in this EB3 category, as Ms. Lowe said, you have to show that there's no other workers. Well, how do you do that? The employer actually has to put an ad in the newspaper 2 Sundays in a row of publication and explain exactly the job qualifications, and has to receive resumes for a period of time, and then has to screen them out. And then additionally, there has to be a notice of job posting at the location and through the employment agency of the state. If the ad is not sufficient, or the Labor Department determines that the recruitment is not valid, it could be audited. If it's audited, it could take years for it to get approved. And all that time, the worker would have to be in status. And if they fall out of status, then they've lost all the money that they've invested in that venture. So I caution that. Okay, now back to EB4. EB4 is a category where you may have heard of some of these qualifications. Generally, in EB4, you do need an employer to sponsor you. There are some exceptions, but there is generally, it's an application called an I-360, and that covers religious workers, special immigrant juveniles, broadcasters, certain government employees, and then certain physicians, Afghani translators, interpreters, and other individuals employed by the US government in other locations in the world. The process for the I-360, in some categories you can file I-360 concurrent, in some categories you cannot file that with your green card application. So you have to wait for the I-360 to be approved and then file. So you have to keep in mind, again, as Ms. Lowe said, you have to be in status, because if you go out of status, then even if you started the process, you're not able to reap the benefit of the lawful permanent residence.
The special immigrant juveniles, though, is a special category. Yes. And I've oftentimes wondered how come, especially the folks from the diaspora, have not taken a hold of it, because you file an I-360 for people who are brought into this country as juveniles and left here. We have a lot of people who, bring their kids in here and then leave and go back to wherever they're from. For the most part, they qualify as special immigrant juveniles, and I-360s can be filed for them. Now, they can be out of status.
Yeah,
the only category.
Well, it's because there's a regulation that talks
there's a
about
regulation
adjustment if you're under 17 years of age. That doesn't put that burden on you.
Right. So, I mean, and the religious workers, I mean, the categories are all there.
And actually, in this category of special juveniles, as Ms. Lowe was speaking of, many times children come to the knowledge of an agency, Child Protective Services, Health and Welfare Agency, and they actually help them do the paperwork to get legalized, because otherwise the child, and it doesn't have to be necessarily a minor child, but even a 16 or 17-year-old child needs the resources that they can obtain by being a lawful permanent resident. Also, in terms of the category of religious workers, there's many people who may have come into the United States originally under an R1 visa as a religious worker, and then they want to convert that to be a religious worker on a path to becoming a lawful permanent resident. That would require them an I-360. However, in that category, they would not be able to file for the lawful permanent residence until their I-360 was approved.
Yes,
So they need to make sure that they would start that process
as soon as possible.
early
probably
on
within a
in
year.
their R1 process, because otherwise they won't have sufficient time to do that. So that is EB4. Now, EB5.
EB5. Can you change to EB5?
There we go.
I actually joked with Denise about this because we really don't know a lot of people who have $1 million to invest, but we're here. And so I hand it over to Denise to explain the EB5 investor program.
Well, the first thing about the EB5 investor program is that it is a program that has been revised many, many times since it was originally instituted, and regulations keep coming out trying to tweak the system, because originally there was fraud in the system. People that were convincing people to spend large sums of money from out of the country to get lawful permanent residence, and in fact, the investments proved to be not valid. There's much scrutiny on an investment under this category. There's actual national clearinghouse that determines validity of these applications, and the commercial enterprise that's going to be undertaken, where the commercial enterprise is going to be undertaken, the amount of the financing, how the financing is made, all these criteria. And then the idea is that they have to show that there's a likelihood that they're going to be able to employ, or that they are going to employ at least 10 US workers full-time, not employees. So this is a category that many people ask questions about, because even the amounts have changed over time, about how much you actually have to have an initial investment. And so that's something, and of course you can do this from outside the country, and you can process it from that way, or inside the country. But again, this is of all the EVs, this is most highly technical of all, and it has the most scrutiny from the government. So
and there's a requirement that after 2 years, because they just give you a temporary, and then that you have to show that you're continuing with this. So you could have conceivably invested, and then because you have not continued to show that you are you have employed 10 permanent full-time people, then all of that goes away and you don't get the green card.
And then you lose the money.
And then you lose the money that you invested. So it's a high category, and unless people have real deep pockets,
and then just there's a couple other collateral things. So there are some EB1, EB2, E1. There's countries in the world that are considered E1, E2 treaty traders with the United States. So depending on the country in the world, there are some countries that are eligible for both E1 and E2, and some countries are only eligible for E1 and some just for E2. That determines what kind of investment you're allowed to make in the United States, what kind of processing you'll be able to obtain in the United States through that investment. There are categories of investment. For example, if you purchase a franchise of a company in the United States that doesn't actually have a minimum investment, however, it has to be a valid franchise. You have to show a substantial investment in the franchise. You have to have the requisite training, and to be able to obtain that type of visa for an investment in the United States. And also you have to be the principal owner of the franchise. And again, that depends on what country you come from, which opportunity is available for your country. But that's something else that some people are very interested in. And that also lends itself to expedited processing. You can get that expedited processing within the 15 business days.
Okay. That is it in more than a nutshell, but that is our presentation. So we welcome questions.
Okay, so I'm gonna call you, if I may, by your Nigerian name now, Mrs. Jaye, Mrs. Jaye Lowe. Thank you so much, Ms. Denise, as well, for the insightful presentation. If anyone asks question, please, you can use the raising hands feature to let us know so we can unmute your mic and you can ask your question. Alternatively, you can also chat in your question using the chat box so we can also answer your questions as well. So 2 options for that. Please use the hand raising of hands to know that you have a question, and we can unmute your line. Alternatively, you can chat in your questions so we can read those questions out. So the first question we've researched that we have for you before the questions begin to come in. So what happens to, first and foremost, is how does someone self-determine if they have extraordinary ability?
Okay, well, it's difficult to self-determine. However, you would need to, 1, have a master's degree, a PhD from a recognized university, or have, if you have a bachelor's degree or a PhD or from a from a foreign entity. There's a company in the United States called the Knowledge Company, certified by the USCIS. You can go online to their website, you submit a copy of your transcript, your course criterion, and they will determine if in fact that degree is equivalent in the United States, and that it certifies in fact that it's the same type of degree based on the coursework you took. So that's one thing you can do to self-determine.
And if you have a highly developed skill, like a Usain Bolt or I'm not being flippant, but I mean, one would know if they have this extraordinary ability. I mean, I've done an actress before. She was actually born in Nigeria, but lived in England. And so that's, I mean, how do you determine? I mean, you know what you've done in your body of work. We had to send a lot of her clippings, a lot of the things that she did. So as I said before, and I mean, I'm serious, this gentleman got his green card because he was a talking drum player.
The next question, oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the next question we have is concerning PhDs. The questions are rolling in now. Give me 1 second. Which of these categories would you recommend for a PhD student in STEM or social sciences?
I'm thinking STEM, because STEM is what the big thing is now here. They want STEM students, they're pushing towards that. And I think one would get a better look if they were a STEM disciplined person.
And I guess I would ask for clarification on the question. Are you saying that the person currently holds a PhD, or they're looking to get a PhD?
Hello?
They did not specify that if they currently hold a PhD, but I think we're going to move to the next question. Please send clarifying text. And if you, let's say, will have your hands up, please feel free to come to the mic if you want to put your hands up as well, so we can unmute you. But let me read the next question that we have. In 1 second, the question's coming in so fast. Is there a USCIS link to determine eligibility?
No.
Okay. Question is about EB2. Will letters from schools attended be sufficient to meet this criteria?
Not generally.
Okay.
Not generally.
Okay. Are there any age limitations for these categories?
No, not at all.
Well, I mean, other than the fact that if you're 18 years of age, it's unlikely that you
would have the
sufficient
body of work.
experience,
Yes.
but generally no.
I was thinking, you're thinking the upper limit.
Yeah.
No, we don't discriminate on
On
age,
age,
you know. I was thinking the upper limit, obviously, a 70-year-old, a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old, a 30-year-old, fine.
Is there a job offer needed for EB2?
In some
In
categories.
some categories, yes.
But
and
mainly no,
in the other categories,
no.
Okay. Someone who came to the United States as a juvenile under the special juvenile category and they became out, can they retroactively go foul if they are now become past 18 years old?
There's some jurisdictions, I think New York goes up to 20, I think.
Yeah,
Maryland, I think might be 19.
it's definitely under 21, and unfortunately, no, it's not
Yeah.
retroactive, but depending on the jurisdiction, it could be between, as Ms. Lowe saying, 18, 19.
18,
or
19.
20.
If the person is still that, they probably can give us a call. Let us determine, if that person would be eligible, because they have to go through a court proceeding anyway.
Okay.
In order, yes,
To determine
to determine
that they're an orphan or abandoned
Yes.
child.
an orphan or abandoned child, and then we would file.
How is the EB2 different from a NIW?
Okay, actually, NIW is in the EB2 category. And NIW is what I was speaking about earlier, which is if you are someone who has a PhD or higher, at least 10 years of experience, you're a teacher, a professor, a researcher, you've done seminal work in your field, publications, you're cited for your publications, and you're doing some type of research, or you're in a discipline that is of national interest or national value or benefit to the United States government, that would make you an NIW as opposed to just a regular EB2. And as I said earlier, NIWs are self-sponsoring. You don't need an employer to sponsor them.
I just want to advocate I just want to amplify the question because I come from that industry. What about folks who come from the impact, nonprofit, or social sciences industry? How can they demonstrate extraordinary ability if they have if they're a change maker in their communities back home?
That's difficult. Unfortunately, in social services, social sciences, although that's very important and integral, showing that they are a change maker back home doesn't necessitate that they're going to be a change maker in the United States. So therefore, U.S. government's focus on NIW is showing that what you're going to give to the United States community, not necessarily what you gave to your community back home. And that's very difficult to prove in the social services area.
Does a lawyer with a master's degree from an American university with 10 years experience in Nigeria, who has done novel work in ICT, in develop information technology deployment, in the Nigerian judiciary, stand a chance to qualify for EB1 or EB2?
Well, it's difficult to assess just on general facts, but the criterion for EB2 would be that you have a master's degree or higher, you have 10 years of experience, you have writings and publications. And of course, that doesn't have to be in the United States, it could be in Nigeria. Experience can be substituted for some of the other categories. I would say that that person should seek a one-on-one consultation to determine if other information, to determine what's their best angle. But it definitely appears that from just the basic information that they have sufficient criterion for an EB2.
The next question is, so we know this might be crossing the legal territory here, does your law firm or lawyers in general, can they help someone frame the messaging, the articulation of their skill? Because I may be insufficient to frame it in such a way that may stand a chance to go through the system, but are there like all the resources or expertise or possibility within your law firm to help someone like really demonstrate their extraordinary ability?
Oh, okay, well, that is what Denise had opined on earlier, saying that in an area like this, you definitely would need people who have been doing this and who are trained in formulating things like this, the qualifications. We'd be able to look at something and be able to say, okay, this is how we're going to frame it, as opposed to going online and doing a family petition. Because I've always told people that I'm not soliciting you to do a case because it's not rocket science, but I represent you. You pay a lawyer to represent, not necessarily to fill out forms. But I will say that in the employment category, it is much, 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 much more intensive, labor intensive, but also what we bring to the table in terms of our knowledge and how we frame the narrative.
And just for example, we recently did a consultation with someone who had actually outstanding qualifications, and when they submitted their curriculum vitae to our office, we reviewed it, and then after consultation with them, we realized that the person had absolutely the right qualifications, but had packaged it inappropriately because they didn't know what to put strength on and emphasis on. So we were able to help the person revise their documents to highlight the experience that best showcase their ability to obtain lawful permanent residence.
So we have a question about where can we find companies that are willing to sponsor? And also to that question about EB-5, those who may not have $1 million, you mentioned that they are franchised opportunity. Can you give us a ballpark in terms of investment possibility, dollar amount range that is within reach for folks to start thinking about?
Maybe $150,000 to $200,000.
Okay.
Yeah, as we said, they don't actually, USCIS doesn't actually say per se in a franchise how much the franchise has to be. It can't be a marginal, it has to be a substantial investment. There are some franchises that are, less than $200,000. There are some that are $35,000. A lot of in the industry, people say, oh, you should look for $100,000 type investment, but it's more what you're investing in, the skills and franchising, the certifications, and because, for example, say you get a franchise for $50,000, but then if the franchise doesn't come with a location, you need to have a location, you need to have a building, you have to have supplies. So next thing you know, it's $100,000.
Yes, that was my point exactly. It's not only buying the franchise, but to put all the money involved. I can't see it being anything less than $150,000.
And then in terms,
and I don't know any franchise of $35,000.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But I would say if people are interested in the franchise thing, that there's actually, they can go to a website and there's find a franchise, and there's pretty much categories of franchises for everything you can imagine on the internet. And it tells you approximately how much it costs for the franchise and the investment, and start there and look around so that you can have an idea. And then once you have an idea about a franchise, you can talk to an attorney, and then they can guide you in terms of what, what you need to do and how you proceed from there. Also,
I have a question. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, in regard to the issue of funding an employer, I wish I had a crystal ball on that point. I would say that, sometimes there's job ads in the newspaper, and you can call them and just tell them up front, you know, this is what I need. You know, is your company willing to sponsor? And then word of mouth, companies that have sponsored other people might be more willing to sponsor you. But that's very difficult because it's more a one-on-one relationship with an
Mhm.
employer.
And I oftentimes get questions from people if I can find, you know, people for them. And we don't do that. In fact, it's not ethical. But also, people will come to us and they will have a willing sponsor, but you have to have a willing and able sponsor, someone who shows that they have the financial wherewithal to carry the, you know, the person in terms of paying the prevailing wage, et cetera, et cetera.
And then also I want to say something about that is that if an employer sponsors you, okay, then, and you obtain your lawful permanent residence, you are required to work for that employer for at least 2 years. And if you don't, then when you apply for lawful permanent residence, that could be a possible barrier to lawful permanent, I mean,
No,
to citizenship,
citizenship.
excuse me, to citizenship, because they can say that you fraudulently
You game the
obtained-
system.
Yes, and so that's another thing you want to make sure of, that, you know, that this is really the job that you want, at least, you know, for 2 years period of time.
You just answered the last question that we had, which was if I, pretty much the answer was if I change jobs after getting my EB-1, what do I have to do, or can I even do that? But I think you just answered the question.
Yeah, 2 years is a really short time to be able to give back.
Unless, of course,
They fire
they
you.
fire you, then, you know, that's a different
story.
Okay, does the 2 years count from when you start the HB1, I'm sorry, H1B from the company?
No,
No,
starts from when you obtain lawful
permanent
permanent residence.
residence.
Oh, okay,
Good one, Mr. Benga.
okay. I'm just a messenger. Yeah. So yes, so I think we have all the questions. So in terms of how do folks get in touch and what is the next step, I can see those questions. So folks, those who might want to get in touch with Ms. Lowe and Ms. Denise law firm, we ask that you go to the nigeriancenter.org website and you submit an intake form. And this is really going to help streamline the process and even accelerate you getting a consultation with them. Also, you should know that with our immigration program, you are assigned a program manager, which is a paralegal that also supports you with wraparound services that your city may provide. Washington, D.C., for example, has a lot of resources for immigrant justice. They may also cover filing fees, application fees for some categories. And even you might also have needs for some legal resources, financial resources that we may be able to help with. So the process is, please go to Nigerian Center under our immigration program. You can submit an intake form, and then you can specify that you want to speak with this particular law firm for today's New York Right workshop, and then we can put you in contact with them. We also want to ask you, I want to send this link out to everyone. If you can please all fill out an evaluation form for today's workshop. We're going to highly appreciate it. In that evaluation form, we want us to tell us what type of topics you want us to cover for our next immigration workshop, so we can be so we can attend to that. I want to echo again opportunities to get involved in our program. So definitely we are receiving donations. Please feel free to make donations to us. If you want to be a recurring donor member, we highly recommend it. We are all volunteer led, and your funding will go a long way for us. So thank you for that. Social media, please join us on social media. The link is the Nigerian Center. I see a few folks already joining us. Please do the same on Twitter. It is Nigerian Center on Twitter. It doesn't have the Nigerian Center. Someone is asking me that, is this recording going to be made available? Yes, the recordings will be made available on our media page. If you go to our website on the media, within 24 hours or so, this link should be made available. We are accepting application for our community partners. Community partners are organizations and community leaders who are going to help us to provide a conduit to folks in their various community that we may not be able to reach. And they would also bring to our awareness what the community needs that we should pay attention to. Volunteering opportunities are also open. Please go to our website, Nigerian Center /serve, to see how you might be able to become a volunteer, maybe to become a volunteer in our program. We are now accepting application from a financial program. We are able to provide $500 up to $250,000 for business capital toward your businesses. Hopefully, when we invest in your business, Mrs. Lowe and Ms. Denise would help you get the extraordinary categories happen, and it will count for a success story. But more importantly, for those who have credit, who need credit building, we are offering credit building loans. We are also offering 0 interest rate for women entrepreneurs are receiving 0 interest rate for the loans that we have. You don't have to have an established business. It could be a business idea. Please reach out to us. And even those who are maybe undocumented or still in the process of adjusting status, we are able to provide you resources as well. We are receiving application for our Yoruba classes online. It's open nationwide as well as Igbo. And on Friday and Saturday, July 1st and July 2nd, we are holding our very first meet and greet at the Roundhouse Theater in Bethesda, Maryland. It's going to be a live play, Nollywood Dreams, that is a live play, a story about life in Lagos, Nigeria in the 1990s. So it's going to be a 2-part event. One will be a meet and greet, networking and opportunity, access to our team. We want to get to meet you. And then we're all going to transition into the live play in Bethesda, Maryland. So far, we have provided significant number of complimentary tickets. If you still want to come, we're able to, the play is providing our members further discounted tickets, and we can even add you to the waiting list just to give you a free ticket to see the play. So please reach out to us if you're in the Washington, D.C. area. That said, I want to thank everyone, and most especially, I want us to do a virtual round of applause for Miss Jaye. Yes, I want to do a round of applause for Miss Jaye Lowe, as well as Miss Denise, to be able to, for graciously supporting this event and sharing their expertise with us. How do we reach out to you? So reach out to the Nigerian Center. The Nigerian Center website, you can submit an inquiry form. You're going to receive a follow-up email after this call, and then you can reach out to us as well, and then we'll be happy to connect you to the law firm. Thank you everyone for your time. I hope to see you next month for the next immigration series. Thank you to the Immigration Practice for graciously supporting us, and thank you for everyone that has been a part of today's event. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you, everyone. Bye.